It's not that different than setting out on an adventure to start a new business. The main difference here is just the nature of the product is you, right? You are the product. And that requires a different level of emotional investment.
Every leader. Let's talk about fear, because most leaders never talk about how scary doing what you're doing is, like really making a big move, right? And I think I have no interest in talking about many of the things that the politicians are talking about, but like the life piece of this, of altering your entire life, taking what some would perceive as a monster risk. Okay, I would have had shame to do this because my mom would have been she's dead, but I'd have had this little voice in the back of my head going, "How dare you? Who are you to think?" You know what I'm saying?
I know that.
You're fighting.
We all have it.
Both external and internal forces that say, "No, don't do that." And I just want to commend you for win or lose, dude. I commend you for jumping out. It's an awesome message to these kids like Gavin.
Thank you.
You're 38. This has not been done. You're not the typical white guy. It excites me. As an older guy, it sets actually a younger man is showing me that I probably underestimated the opportunities in life. And I think that you're gonna hold a symbol of being a disruptor, but also someone that's willing to push the status quo. So how hard was that?
So each of us is wired differently. I think fear can be a powerful motivator. For me, I've actually always found it to be more, it exists, but more constraining for me. And so for me, it's sort of the moments where I think about what's the worst this could go. Like let's just get like the worst case scenario on the table, right? Let's say everybody knows everything.
Everybody gets to know who you are.
Yeah, let's just say let's just say it's all on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our worst case. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Right.
And so it feels scary until you've laid that on the table. And then you sort of say, okay.
But you did go through it.
Yeah.
You did go through that.
Oh, absolutely. But the way but I find that for me to be limiting, right? We wouldn't have done that if we just stopped there to say, no. Here's the worst case of how it's going to play out. And am I comfortable with that? Because I know why we're doing this. We're called by a purpose. We think we are working within a final window here.
You.
Yeah, I say we because this is a family decision. Building businesses, I'll say me. Yeah, but we're doing this as a family.
That's good perspective. You got kids.
We got kids. Yeah, so we are doing this together. Absolutely. I mean, they're living this life now, which is not one that they signed up for. So this is a we decision as a family. My wife's a surgeon. She's one of the best in the world at what she does. She's a throat surgeon at Ohio State. So she's kept her job full time, but she's dragged into this or not. So we decided that, okay, if that's the worst case, what's the actual purpose? We have a country to save. We don't have that much time to do it. I believe that purpose is worth it. So then if the fear that's stopping me from potentially taking the leap, how's the worst possible scenario of how it could go? I'm okay with that. And you know what? Early on in this campaign, I said, okay, I'm a business guy like you, built multiple successful businesses. Well, usually there's a different way you're supposed to do this. I said, what are they gonna do? 20 years of tax returns, just publish it for the public to see. Great. Now, I can tell you,
I'll fight it, man.
Having done it, I understand why they would tell somebody in my shoes not to do that.
Really? Wow.
Oh, I mean, just distortions left and right, et cetera. But I said,
take everything out of context.
It's happened a million times, even on the personal, financial, all that stuff too. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's what actually helps conquer my sense of fear is lay it all out. You got nothing left to hide. Imagine what your worst downside is, and you're very comfortable with that, great, then you have nothing left to fear. It's worked for me for most of my life.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. What's the worst that can happen? I could fail.
Yeah.
What does that even look like? Then you go through the process. What does failure look like? Let's see, I ran for president of the United States and got close. That's failure? That's an awesome failure, right? And I actually think you probably have a better chance of that.
Yeah.
Just with all the dynamics.
My heart thinks, you know, I mean, if you look at your brain, you can do your analysis. As a political analyst, you'd say that, you know, I don't have a majority chance of winning. My heart says we're actually going to be successful. So follow your heart, follow your passion, conquer your fear by understanding what the worst case is in the process, and then you take the leap you need to take. So I've done my whole career, and you've been the same way. I mean, it's not that different than setting out on an adventure to start a new business. The main difference here is just the nature of the product is you, right? You are the product. And that requires a different level of emotional investment than even starting any of the businesses that I've started.
This is totally different than starting a business. You're exposing yourself to everyone.
That's right. Yeah,
right?
You're taking out the full kimono.
Every little skeleton that ever possibly could come out.
Embarrassment is a choice, you know? Nobody can force you to be ashamed or humiliated of anything. If it's who you really are and you yourself are proud of it, then that's not somebody else's choice of whether you're embarrassed. That's your choice. So
yeah, I think there's very few people that
embrace
don't.
That.
You must not have many skeletons in your closet, though.
I don't think so. I don't consider them to be skeletons.
Well, I mean, look, I've made mistakes, right? Things that I'm like, oh, okay, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
I haven't done anything that I wouldn't tell my kids if they were teenage kids about it, right?
Exactly.
And if I'm comfortable there, then if there's set an example for every other teenage kid in this country and not just my own, great, we'll do that by being open. And so I think that's something that, especially in this realm, actually has been missing. I don't think politicians traditionally do it that way. It's a question of how effectively you build the wall to hide what's on the inside, but then you're always bearing that fear. I mean, that skeleton or whatever it is that's going to come out. My view is the opposite. Lay it all out in the open. Nothing to hide from. And it's not even hiding from others. Nothing to hide from yourself. Then you're actually at peace to be the best version of yourself. And I hope that sets a good example for people.
Well, I hope for your kids, for sure.
Yeah, I hope so too.
And I'm sure you are.
I hope so too.
How would you grade the U.S. today?
D.
Economically?
Economically, see, here's the thing I would say is if we bisect this into every individual category, every individual grade is going to be better than a D. But together, it adds up to being a D, and I'll tell you why. You know, economically...
I'm trying to think of anything that can cut a D right now. I'm struggling with where we are a C or a B.
I would give us a C across. I would give us a C on our economics. You could say that, okay, well, you know, there are many metrics: stock market, joblessness rates, et cetera.
$33 trillion of debt.
But almost $34 trillion in national debt.
I might as well stick heroin in my neck.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't
and by the way,
keep doing this.
The federal, pretty soon, that C immediately becomes an F, because once the interest payments on our national debt become the largest line item in the federal budget, which is about 3 years from now, then we're toast. It's quicksand from there on down. So my view is we're kind of in this window right now where it's our last window where we can actually step up and get this right. You and I think, both have an affinity for zero-based budgeting. Start with zero as the baseline. I can't tinker around this. You can't tinker around the status quo.
Make sure these people understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Level the freaking budget to zero and start.
Exactly. You can't start with last year's budget and say, oh, I'm going to tinker around the edges and these agencies. Okay, I'm going to put a different person on top and say reform it. No, that doesn't work.
Yep.
It's a myth.
You can't Band-Aid.
We have to start with a blank sheet of paper. You got this sheet of paper, turn this over, you got your blank slate. Totally blank slate, then you start with what's actually necessary. If you start with what's written on the prior sheet of paper.
Vivek's plan.
That's right.
Start clean.
Start clean, that's exactly right. And then, well, it comes back to that different question of fear. It's fear of in a different context. Well, what are we gonna miss? What are we gonna lose out from what we already have? You have to be willing to say...
Probably half the shit we're getting right now.
Exactly. Back to that question, what's your worst case scenario?
We're
already in the worst case scenario.
Correct.
Right, so what fear do you have to then start with a blank slate and build from the ground up? So when that
was my primary reason meeting you. My primary purpose in meeting you was I actually went through that process. I'm like, okay, he's 38. I don't know what the guy stands for, but like, can we mess this up any worse than we could? And we have somebody that actually is looking at the issues. You can't solve problems if you don't look at the core problem.
You have to. Get to the root cause.
It's like medicine. Like, I can take some Advil, but that's not stopping Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
the
symptoms.
Republican Party Democratic Party has been offering, I think, a lot of poison. The Republican Party at best has been offering a lot of Advil. But nobody's getting to the root cause of the actual cancer.
Is there any difference between these two
Not
parties?
really.
They're professional politicians.
Yeah.
That's the party, right?
I mean, they really are. I mean, both parties are major dominated by the establishment wing that's funded by the same people. It's the same kind of people who, pretend, they put on a show for, what they'll disagree about,
Sure.
That's a sideshow
compared
to, both parties want to fund some war in Ukraine that doesn't advance the American interest. Both parties have paid for Iraq to Afghanistan, wars in the Middle East, killing tens of thousands of our sons and daughters. By the way, the $34 trillion in national debt, $7 trillion of it just came from those two wars. So the push comes to shove, the two parties aren't that different from each other. You could argue that the Republican Party is a subsidiary of the Democratic Party, maybe. You could debate which one's a subsidiary of which one. But they're part of the same beast. That being said, we live in a two-party system, and so I'm using the Republican Party as a vehicle to advance a pro-American agenda. But the reality is you have a lot of people, I think the corruption issues are similar in both parties. Foreign policy is the third rail, but both of them agree basically on this interventionist pro-war worldview that I think we need to reject. And the irony is, for as long as they've been doing that, that's why we're grading at a D right back here at home, is that the lack of focus on our own citizens and protecting our own homeland is the direct cause, or directly caused by, our obsession with foreign agendas and foreign wars in the Middle East that haven't advanced the American interest. So it's not an accident that we see that decline in our domestic standard of living and domestic security at the same time that we've actually gone elsewhere in the world and not done a lot of good in the process there either.
So question on the war piece. Seems to me, as I review history for the last 40 or 50 years, oil and war are attached to each other in a really unique way. Is that a fair statement? If crude oil was at $300, would we be having all these wars, you think? And because I believe that, first off, energy in the United States...
We'd be producing it in the United States, and then...
We would be.
And we'd make a lot of money doing it, because we're actually very well endowed when it comes to that.
We wouldn't be killing anyone.
Exactly. I mean, as the analogy is, I think you could also make an argument that semiconductors are like a new form of oil in that regard, too. I mean, the little chips that we're dependent on, that could be a source of major conflict. Why don't we just produce those in a way that we don't have to rely on Taiwan, which would be one of the great risks of the catalysts of World War III.
Right.
And in a certain sense, economics is the foundation of war, but economics is also the foundation of avoiding war. Is if you're actually able to avoid the scarcity.
He who doesn't have it can't fight.
That's right.
So if you're a first, second, or third world nation, it is literally depending on who has the richest and the greatest volume, not price. Has nothing to do with price.
Yep.
Okay? I'm certain that every American has too cheap of energy. My energy guys are going to love me. I'm not actually helping them. I do not know anyone, not one of these people have turned their laptop computer off at night. That tells me electricity is too cheap. If it was priced correctly, consumption would get closed at night. You would take care of it. 400 megawatt power station, man. In England, if you just unplug the plug from the TVs, from the wall outlet, just for the remote convenience. We have become an addicted society, and we got $75 crude. I'm like, hey, maybe it needs to be $300 crude. We no longer have wars. There's nothing to protect. Everybody's making a shitload of money, right? And people are behaving their consumption. And the green industry doesn't need any subsidies because it's competing with $300. Okay, gasoline's probably $8 here. Everybody's going to bitch. Stop driving to the store for a loaf of bread, man. It's a waste of energy. Like, we are just
it's a fascinating way to look at
price. Always manages everything.
And I think the analogy even to other areas other than energy is interesting too. But your first business was in energy, is that right? Yeah. What was it?
Built a Fortune 30 company, Dynegy, and an Enron kind of lookalike, but didn't have all the monopoly
with all the
constructs. And the whole mission was remove all the opacity from the energy markets. There was 23,000 oil producers at the time. Now there's 400. There were too many oil producers. You know, we have fracking now. When did fracking occur? Fracking became really, really well done at somewhere between $10 and $30. Again, shows you, oh, wow, when price gets crushed, innovation shows up. They didn't stop drilling. They drill like mofos, right? They drill. That's what they do. Doctors do surgeries.
Totally.
Right? Engineers do engineering. They never think about price. That's not a part of the equation. They drill holes in the ground. And we now have a fracking economy. I think at $300, we would stop so much of this. So much of really bad behavior that some of it's tacitly people are not even aware of it, right? You got people in England paying $10 a gallon. They don't drive all over the place, okay? They walk. They use mass transit. So there's just so many fundamentally broken things that started in the 60s and 70s. That whole NATO, euro dollar, petrodollar construct, OPEC. Like we have a police with OPEC, hey, let's keep the price. So it's a broken, it's a 20th century model. I think they're all breaking. Education, I think, okay, if we actually, I'm not an overly well-educated person in the school system, but the markets, I am a brilliant guy in markets. Because like what I just told you about the 300, you're like, hey, why hasn't any economist pitched this to me?
It's not something you get, something you get from your standard economic advisor class.
Well, because it's not going to sell very well. Hey, crude oil is going to $300. People are going to be like, what's that mean to me? Okay, well, it means you're going to control your energy consumption. Okay, and Gary's going to get taxed more because he's being taxed on consumption, how much he uses, versus Bobby, Gavin might say, hey, I'm not going to consume. I'm going to consume less so I can invest in my future. I'm going to buy Bitcoin instead of burning gasoline to go get a loaf of bread, right? I think supply and demand and prices really have a tremendous way.
So you're beginning to say about education.
Well, I wanted to go to education because I don't think we got this stupid without being uneducated, miseducated, poorly educated, and or if not lied to. Because I see a whole world that's like, they're clueless. Like, how did we get here? Okay, I see people paying 21% to Visa, MasterCard for $6,600 a credit card expansion. They don't have the money. Everyone's in debt. I'm not in debt. I got an idea you're not in debt. Okay, now I see you spending a lot of your own money investing in the future. That's what you're doing. You are investing your own money into the future.
Yeah, no, personal debt, never take it on.
Okay, so why? Why do we have 300 million people that buy stupid stuff, gives them no value whatsoever? We're just dumbed down, man. Dumbed down. So I find it very difficult to meet a lot of really brilliant people that don't have a bunch of weird, made up ideas like, okay, we need the biggest military in the world and we need to be the policeman of the world. And like, how's that going to work?
Yep.
It's not sustainable on any planet. You run out of resources.
Absolutely.
And then you start looking for targets because, hey, I want to hire some more policemen. Okay, who's the target? I think I was a target on this FTC thing. I think they knew I liked Trump. I love Bitcoin. I think the financial system's completely screwed up, and education.
We definitely have a government that has weaponized its regulatory state, its investigatory state against its political opponents. No doubt about it. I mean, there's no doubt about that all the way down. So
I'm scared to talk about it because I'm scared the DOJ is going to show up. Knock, 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 let's push on you. I know the IRS is going to show up.
That's not the way this is supposed to work.
It's
this is the United freaking States of America. And yet, we're behaving, we need to restore that.
Yeah.
See, our founding fathers, they envisioned 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, judicial. They did not envision this 4th branch of government, FTC
the shadow.
DOJ to SEC to FDA to the EPA, you name it, the shadow government. The good news is the shadow government is something the president can fix. It's like getting in to be CEO of one of those companies. Be able to say, we are going to shut down the bureaucratic layers in between. You don't need to ask Congress for permission or for forgiveness on that because the president of the United States runs the executive branch of the government. So yeah, I think we need a CEO from a different generation, somebody who understands the cancerous threat posed by bureaucracy. I mean, that's what it's going to take. And Trump had some of this, for sure. That's why he was successful in what he was able to do. But we got to take that to the next level. And I think that's what drew me into this whole process.
So what do you do with education? Because I think you agree with me that my kids go to private school. He goes to a private school. Yeah. I don't see any difference in the public and private school except kind of the cosmetics on the prison. Mm-hmm.
So I think let's start with the low-hanging fruit. We've got this federal agency, the U.S. Department of Education. They collect $80 billion in tax revenue.
80 billion.
80 billion. Yeah, it's 1.6 billion per state if you divide it evenly. Just shut it down and return $1.6 billion.
And no kind of return on capital, right? Like there's no measurement of what this money's doing. Right?
No. I mean, we can.
You said 80 billion?
80. Yeah, annual budget.
And that's just the feds, right?
And that's just the feds. But not only is there no measurement of what's the positive ROI, this is where they're actually using that money as a cudgel to then as like a forcing tool to get local schools across the country to adopt toxic racial and gender ideologies and the kind of self-loathing dogmas that our schools are forcing onto our kids without any measurement of what are we actually doing for improving our writing proficiency or reading proficiency or math proficiency amongst those same kids. So my view is shut those schools down. Let competition work here.
Shut them down.
Shut the Department of Education down. Excuse me. So the Department of Education down. Push that money.
I'm actually thinking you should just go on strike for 3 months.
Well, I think that there's whatever the method is, it can't be worse than the status quo. And there's a little dirty little secret here where the schools that spend the most money per student today, 90% of the time, are the schools that deliver the poorest results per student. So as a entrepreneur, arbitrager, and there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
So if you're a parent, now you've got $80 billion coming right back to you. A lot of private schools are not that much better than the public schools. Some of the charter schools popping up made by people like you and me, entrepreneurs, but who are able to kind of create a school with a different charter, may offer different alternatives, but there's a lot of alternatives available. Let competition work to the maximum. So if parents can actually choose where they send their kids to school, but they have literally any choice available to them, but then go to the next level, 90% of the time, what did I say? If you're switching from a bad school to a good one, you're switching to a school that spends less money per student. I think the parents should be able to take that money with them to follow the kid.
I agree.
So I'll give you a real example. New York City, we'll give real numbers. $40,000 per student per year in a bad public school.
Wow.
Okay. Let's say you're switching to a charter school that's actually doing better for those students in terms of achievement. How do you measure in terms of testing results and otherwise? Let's say it's spending, and I'm being nice on this example, let's say they're spending $20,000 per student per year. That's a $20,000 difference.
Yep.
I think that those kids should be able to take that money with them. In fact, maybe even if they take half the difference with them, that kid takes $10,000 with him, put it in his account. If that's invested according to normal returns, that kid graduates with a $250,000 graduation gift when he graduates from high school. It's not even close. Now, the main obstacle that stops local schools from being able to actually compete are these teachers' unions, the middlemen in the system, different kind of middleman. But those teachers' unions are the cancer on our educational system. So the states in public schools should not be writing their contracts in ways that allow for collective bargaining. What they should just say is, it's a free country, but if you want to work for the public schools, you should not be able to unionize. Because think about it, if you're a union as a public school teacher, who are you unionizing against? You're unionizing against the very public that you supposedly want to represent.
Your clients.
So I would say it's a combination of shutting down the Federal Department of Education, returning that money to the states, having true choice on steroids, where if you're switching to a school that's better but spends less money, you get to take the money with the kid, shut down the teachers' unions, pay teachers more if they're actually delivering better results for their students. Right now, there's also not only just a floor, but a cap on what teachers can earn too. Let somebody do it more through meritocracy. If a teacher's doing a good job, they should be allowed to be paid more. And then I think we have to revive civic education in this country too.
How do you define civic?
Well, you got to know the basic values that the country was founded on. So low-hanging fruit here.
He asked, this 16-year-old young man asked,
Yeah.
hey, what can Vivek do for the culture? Like, how do we see ourselves as a country?
We got to revive our sense of citizenship, who we are as a people. I mean, that's what we're missing. A simple example I'd give you. Every high school senior who graduates from high school should have to pass at least the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a voting citizen of this country. So I'm not inventing some new test or some new knowledge base. We already say to immigrants, whatever country you come from, you have to know certain basic elements about this country and the history of our country in order to become a full voting citizen of that country. Why on earth shouldn't a high school senior who graduates from high school to at least have to be able to know the basic things that we already say to an immigrant you have to know to be able to come to be a voting citizen of this country? That's pretty basic. So it's that type of mentality. And by the way, there's a 10-year-old girl who approached me in Iowa at one of our events about a month ago. It's about a 100-question test. Usually for the immigrants who come here, they take 10 questions from it, 60% is a passing score, but the whole pool is 100 questions. Basics on the country.
Did your mom take that test?
If she becomes a citizen, she'll have to take the test. Perfect, yeah, but you'll know what that is. If she has to pass the test to become a citizen, I think that you should have to pass that test, and every one of your classmates should before you graduate from high school. But this 10-year-old girl approaches me with a printout. She had heard me talk about this somewhere. She said, hey, I know that people said this was controversial. I just want you to know I got 100% on the test.
Wow.
60% is a passing score. So if this 10-year-old girl can do it, every high school senior can too.
Absolutely.
You got to know something about the country to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
To actually value that country. You can't just passively inherit it. And so I do think that we have to revive this culture of citizenship, this idea that, yes, I can be a capitalist pursuing my own individual American dream and be an individualist, but I'm also a citizen of a nation, and that comes with certain commitments and duties, at the very least to know about that nation. And I think what's going on with young people right now in the country that I see certainly, in some ways I'm part of that generation, certainly people my generation and younger, is that we are so starved for purpose and meaning. At a time in our history when faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. And so what we need to do...
And I miss all of them.
And I miss all of them.
I do. I miss that fabric of having some depth beyond just TikTok.
That's right.
Instant
You know, as you bring up,
everything.
60% of young Americans say they would sooner give up their right to vote than to give up their access to TikTok.
That is an indication of gross addiction.
That's where we are
True
right now.
chemical addiction now.
That's where we are as a country right now.
It is.
So my view is fill that vacuum of purpose and meaning with, I mean, you could pick two, faith, patriotism, hard work, family. You don't have, even if you don't do all of them, just pick two, but it can't be zero. And that's when the poison fills the void, right? The poison fills the void when there's a vacuum.
Yep, that's right.
So we can't
That's why I keep working.
We can't just play whack-a-mole. Hard work is part of that,
exactly.
right? It gives us purpose. So when we use our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work, that not only hurts our economy, not only adds up to our national debt, it adds to our epidemic of depression and anxiety, right? So these things go together.
You're talking about emotional depression.
Yeah, so back to where we are as a country, I give us a D, but even if you look at our economy narrowly, say our economy is a C, no, we're still at a D because that feeds then a mental health epidemic driving depression across this country because we need purpose and meaning. That doesn't mean you pump yourself up with pharmaceuticals, no.
Yeah.
It means you fill the vacuum with the real thing. Revive faith in a higher power. Revive faith in this country, patriotism. Revive faith in yourself, that you can work hard, achieve anything you ever want with your own commitment and dedication, something we've lost in this country, but we want to pass to the next generation. I personally think family and the revival of family is important. That's something that allowed me to have a stable footing. When you jump from a stable ground, you're able to jump higher than a ground that's shaking. Those are the basic common elements of our fabric and our culture that I'm not going to say we have lost. We have lost it now, but we can bring back. But that's my responsibility as a leader from the next generation. Make those concepts cool again in this country. We celebrate that. That's who we are.
Yeah, I really like that. Look, on your education piece, I've never considered being in politics, but I would actually go further than what you're saying on education.
Good.
In alignment with what you said in the other room, and hey, you need to raise it to the ground. Look, we have AI, okay? My children, first I had my kids in private school, like private teacher, right? That's really what I loved. But I think in the next 18 months, I'm going to be able to buy software programs that look like humans, that Elon Musk, Vivek, give me some Thomas Jefferson, give me a little bit of doctor over here, and that's my kid's teacher. She's doing 3 hours a day, not 8, 9, 10 hours in a prison. They're getting dumbed down there.
Oh, they really are.
They're being unplugged, man.
It's a good analogy.
Horrible. Okay, their brains are literally being unplugged.
Programmed, yep.
And they're not thinking, and they don't need, like I would wipe the entire school system out. Just how bad could it get? They're already failing all their tests.
It's already
And if they're not failing, they're just pushing them through the system, man. Here, we'll up your grade.
They treat it like an assembly line.
It's
like a manufacturing assembly line. You use the prison analogy. It's our greatest national asset.
It's more valuable than crude oil, man. Okay,
the most valuable national asset.
Gold. It is our asset.
And we're failing them.
We're not having enough of them. And then when we do have the babies, we're not teaching them anything about life skills.
I'm glad you're one of the few people talking about the underpopulation problem.
Oh, the underpopulation problem is the same as me having a company that's endemic doing this.
That's what our country's
doing. My company is going to go down. It either grows or it dies.
Life expectancy is going down, and the birth rate's going down. And they shouldn't be partisan concepts. This isn't a Democrat idea or a Republican idea. This
there's
isn't
something
even a black
wrong.
idea or white. It's deeper.
These are symptoms of like, whoa, man, the organism is failing. We are an organism as a human species, right? And then the United States is an organism. No one likes us. Our taxes are cool, but like there's so many hidden taxes. It's really sad. So I would offer to help in any way I can.
The general principle, I will take the help. Raise it to the ground, whatever it is. Whenever there's a bureaucracy standing in the way, level it to the ground. Start with that blank sheet of paper.
Right.
We're at a place where, kind of where we started the conversation.
Yeah.
You got to get over your fear. How much worse could it be?
Look, I wish I had I think I'm going to probably find some more hours to spend with you, but what can I do to help you? And what can people that share any of this, like where do you really need the help? Because you're doing the heavy lifting, right? You're working, 20-hour days?
Oh, yeah,
more,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
How many hours,
probably 4 hours of sleep last night. That's not an abnormal night.
How many flights you been on in the last week?
Oh, tens. Yeah.
So anybody thinks he's flying private and it's fun, let me tell you.
No, it's out of necessity. It's
not even possible, okay? So he would do teletransporting if he could.
So look, I think I have an opportunity. We have a clear path for me to lead this country to a national revival, reach the next generation, take the America First movement to the next level, and rid ourselves of this bureaucracy. Keep us out of World War III in the process. That's important.
Are you saying you're going to keep us out of war?
I am the candidate who will keep us out of World War III, keep us out of major war, period. And I think everybody else, is bloodthirsty for it.
What do we
Some
do?
on the debate stage last night. So if I can win Iowa and New Hampshire, I'm the next president. It's interesting how that works because Iowa and New Hampshire go first in the process.
Interesting.
So there's a real high ROI opportunity here because that would exceed expectations dramatically, right?
I think there is a very high ROI here. If people get behind this guy, I'm sitting here right in front of him. I've known more bullshitters in my life than
you have a pretty good nose for it.
He actually comes off more genuine. You come off more genuine than even on TV.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I mean, TV is such an artificial medium. So I will say this, okay? The RNC, I called them out for their corruption yesterday. Literally, the chairwoman, this is how corrupt they are. Because I called her out, last night she says, I'm not going to get a dime of their money. Actually, she says not a penny. He's not going to get a penny of our money. Well, I don't want to be somebody else's circus monkey for the RNC, that's the Republican National Committee. Great, I'm going to continue calling out the corruption. You're not going to silence me. So we're putting our family's hard-earned wealth into this. But one of the factors that elevates even your standing is how much external money you're raising. So if it's $1, it's $1.
Right.
It still shows that somebody is part of this movement.
Yeah. So $1, 50 cents, $3.
I think $1 might be the lowest you're able to get, but it's $1. It's $1.
Too much to the credit card company.
It's all, you know how that works. Yeah. But if it's $1, it's $1.
You can take Bitcoin, Ethereum, you can take anything.
Oh yeah. Crypto.
We haven't talked about crypto.
Donations.
I'm going to hit you in Dallas and talk a little bit about.
I'm aggressively pro-crypto because I'm anti-administrative state, and those two things go together.
Yeah, we're going to get you to say pro-Bitcoin.
For Bitcoin, I mean,
crypto. There's some other things in there you don't want to.
Some trash in there, but I would say decentralized
digital
finance
asset
broadly,
world.
digital asset world
we
broadly.
We are digitizing this planet.
And the thing about Bitcoin is there's a fixed supply, which I think actually adds some real hard value to that. So
there's a fixed supply of you too.
Yeah.
See, I think that's a great place to end. Here's a guy that's 38. I'm not 38. I'm 65. I can't do this. Okay, I don't have the guts. Don't have the background, the connections, and I'm not going to blow $15 million of my money into a presidential race because I think it would be a waste. We got a 37-year-old guy here who speaks well. He's well educated. He doesn't like the system. I like guys that don't like the system, okay? So, like, I go back to this. I don't need any more professional politicians.
Yeah, we're done with that.
I hope you're not one of them. I don't think
I've been one for 7 months.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? When I leave the White House after 2 terms, I'm going to be 48 years old. We have a whole life to live after that. That's what I'm looking forward to for my kids. We want the inheritance I want to give my kids is a country that allows them to have the same American dream I did. So after 2 terms, get me the heck out of there, and we move on to a different phase of our life, but in a country that is the country that Thomas Jefferson signed a Declaration of Independence for. That's what I want.
I look forward to getting to know you.
I appreciate
much better,
that, Gary.
And I'm here to help.
Thank you.
I'm going to donate some money. I will tell, what's the Republican lady?
Ronna McDaniel.
Rhonda, you will never get a penny from me, okay? Don't call me. I won't give you any money at the RNC.
Amen.
And the Democrats don't even bother either because you're the same club. But that's ridiculous that you could hold an honest statement and then they hold you hostage to the funds. It shows everything.
And you know what? You got to sometimes see the corruption to fix it. So I don't mind. It's ugly when we see it. We're going to get in there, we'll fix it.
It's hard to look at, too. You're like, really? They're doing this in public?
And you know what? Even after my 2 terms in there, I think we should become regularly a habit in this country. Take somebody outside of that system and put them in to actually fix it. Because we're all human beings. By the time I'm out of there, I'm not a professional politician now, but maybe 8 years in, you want me out of there, get the next guy in
for sure.
With fresh blood to start with that blank slate again. That's how we're going to get this country back.
Hey, if you like this video, like and subscribe. And let me tell you why you're doing that. It's not so much that I need to see that you like me, but when you hit the like button, and then when you subscribe, and then when you send that link to your mom, your sister, your brother, the guy you hate because you really want me to irritate him, it actually helps the algorithm so that whatever platform we're using for this, it actually expands our community. And by expanding our community, 1, it's going to make me really interested because I actually want to effectuate change. But 2, it makes our community much bigger and our voice will have more power. So if you could like, subscribe, retweet, smash it out, advertise it, put it on a billboard if you want. Just don't send me the bill and keep coming back, okay? Thank you very much.